Hello, everybody. Welcome to Torn Tuesday. This is your weekly dose of all things Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, and we're just getting started. This year has been amazing, and we're almost at the end of it. There's only one more show for the whole year. I can't believe it. And today just happens to be the 16th anniversary to the day of the release of Fellowship of the Ring, of course, on this day in 2001. And I thought, what better way to talk about Christmas cheer and talk about positivity and memories than to celebrate Fellowship of the Ring. Today we should be joined by my regular co-host Cliff Broadway on Skype, and we're hoping to get some of the founders of the OneRing.net on the show as well. And of course you. There is a scrolling text right there. It just started. Call the hotline. The hotline goes right to my phone and Cliff's phone. You can text me, actually. Text us, and it goes to me and Cliff, and we'd love to see your texts. Also, Skype. The Skype, it's scrolling really slow today, but the Skype is turned on. If you call now, before Cliff calls in, you can be part of the show. So, Skype me now with your video camera and tell me about that first feeling that you got when you saw the trailer for Fellowship of the Ring. Tell me what movie you saw it from. A lot of people saw the trailer attached to Pearl Harbor, Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor. A lot of people went and saw a bunch of other movies. Jurassic Park 3, I think, had the trailer. 12. There was another movie, not 12 Monkeys, no. But anyway, there were a bunch of movies in 2001 that were playing the Lord of the Rings trailer from the end of January all the way through release. So when was the first time you saw the trailer in a full, complete experience, theatrical experience, not real video streaming media that was this size? You remember like waiting all day to hopefully it downloaded? Ben Brockbank says, in my living room, I had read the book and our mom rented the extended version VHS for us to watch. Oh my gosh. That was probably the last VHS I ever bought, was The Lord of the Rings. We've got our first hotline. Let's call him up. Hi, who's calling?
Hey, it's Brendan Marr calling from San Jose, California.
Hey, how's it going? So, we're talking about the first time you ever saw the Fellowship trailer. Can you describe where that was and what your reaction was?
Well, actually, I don't recall what movie I saw it with, but I first watched it on QuickTime back in the old days when you had to download it took forever to download the trailer. And I remember that. That was pretty cool. So I remember seeing it the first time, watching it there online, and it absolutely blew me away.
So the first time you saw it was on a computer. It wasn't in a theater.
Yeah, it was the old QuickTime.
Yeah, and it took hours and hours to download.
Yeah, that's the funny part. It took forever.
So what was the one thing?
It was absolutely worth it.
Do you remember the one thing that really jumped out at you with the trailer of Fellowship of the Ring?
Well,
What was it?
I love the music that they used in the trailer.
Yeah.
You know, that trailer music that they use all the time.
Yeah, totally. We were looking up old articles from 2001, and we had actually posted, one of our senior editors had posted a call out to anyone in the industry that could tell us what the trailer music was. We really wanted to know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I remember that. It really blew me away. I actually remember watching that one online trailer. You remember that very first little teaser?
Yeah, it wasn't really a trailer. It was more like a, hey, we're making this kind of behind-the-scenes thing.
Yeah. But all of those trailers, that one and then the one for the then the one for Fellowship, I do remember quite vividly.
Yeah.
I just remember everyone gathering around the computer screen just to watch them.
And this is before everyone had HD and before YouTube and everything.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
But I do remember that, and it was amazing, and I was so excited. And I always believed that it was going to be a good movie. I never had any doubt about that.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. Somehow I knew.
Yeah, I mean, all the reactions that we got. Go ahead.
It's one of those rare times that a movie lives up to the trailer.
Totally, and it's one of the few movies where I actually remember seeing the trailer. I mean, there's very few. We see so many trailers. Yeah. Like, I remember the first time I ever saw certain things in Lord of the Rings because it's just that memorable.
Yeah, that's how I remember seeing Space Jam, because they were showing the Star Wars re-release trailer with it. So it's one of those rare occasions. But I remember specifically watching the Fellowship trailer because it was one of those great moments in my life, I think.
Oh, man, that is great to hear. Hey, we appreciate you calling in and sharing this memory with you. We're going to open up the line for more people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, again, the hotline is scrolling across the screen. You can Skype me, you can text me, you can call me right now. I want to know when you first saw the trailer. Julie in the chat room says, in cinema at the Tea Tree Plaza, then in Norwood, again at the Tea Tree Plaza. That's amazing. Seth says, when the Fellowship of the Ring came out, I was a wee young lad in elementary school and in school like every other month in library class. It looks like Cliff accidentally group called everybody, so we're going to cancel that. Nicole Barco, interesting. I was not impressed when I first saw the trailer. Unimpressed only because I didn't think they'd be able to do it justice. I was wrong, so very wrong. Interesting. Let's give Cliff Broadway a direct call right now. Let's bring him in. And Cliff didn't answer. All right, the Skype lines are open. The phone calls are open. I want to know when you first saw the Fellowship of the Ring trailer, because today is the 16th anniversary of the release of Fellowship of the Ring. And it basically was the biggest winter movie since Titanic. So it really set everything up. All right. Let's see if we can bring in Cliff here. Clifford! Hello, Cliff.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hi, how are you?
I am very, very good. Hello. I've made a couple of calls in to Skype, but I was accidentally calling a group message for Kalasuri and you and Kelly and our happy Hobbit co-hostess Kelly Rice, better known as author K.M. Rice. And I'm just so excited I finally got through to you. Hello, everybody.
Excellent. We've already had phone calls and so many messages of people explaining when they first saw the Fellowship of the Ring trailer. We see so many trailers now, and we're just exposed to so much on YouTube and everywhere that very few movie trailers stick with us. But people seem to remember. Kath Moxon in the chat room says, I was 18 when Fellowship came out, and I'd somehow lived for 18 years without knowing much about Tolkien's work. I blame my parents. Of course you do. but within the first 10 minutes of the movie, I knew instantly I was hooked for life. Such an amazing feeling, finding something you love instantly like that. I mean,
isn't that fantastic?
That's how I feel. I hadn't read Lord of the Rings. I wasn't exposed to Lord of the Rings or anything Tolkien except for this really creepy Bilbo Baggins movie. I remember. I don't even remember any of the songs. Do
But you remember the Rankin and Bass animation somewhere vaguely in your mind?
Somewhere vaguely, we did. We had a Betamax player. We didn't even have VHS, and I don't think they ever released The Hobbit on Betamax. So that excluded me from being exposed to it. Do you remember, Cliff, when you first saw the Fellowship of the Ring trailer? Was it in a theater? Was it online?
Actually, no. The first time I saw the Fellowship of the Ring trailer, I was sitting in the office of McKellen.com, where I was working for Sir Ian McKellen. And instead of doing my work, like everybody, I went onto the computer, and this was back when we were just delighted to have any kind of video available on any website at all. It was like, oh, wow, did you get the QuickTime file? Yes, I did. Those are the best versions of those video files. Yes, they are. And, you know, everybody was like searching for the perfect high-res QuickTime version of that trailer. I saw it at work while I was working for Ian.
That's amazing.
When I saw that trailer.
You know who just joined our Facebook chat? Mike Stern says, I got to see myself in there, the Uruk guy at Amon Hen. It was a hell of a present.
That's great. He actually saw himself?
Yeah.
Wow, how cool is that?
That's amazing. Man, hey, Mike, if you're on Skype, please, if you're in New Zealand, Skype us right now. I'd love to talk to you. If you were actually in the movie as an Uruk, let's talk about that.
Yeah, please come and join us, brother. Join us. That would be great.
Alan Brockovich. Now, a few people in the chat room have been saying what Alan says right here, which is, wasn't impressed with the early Fellowship trailers, but any worry was vanquished within the first 30 seconds of the movie. You know, I was looking at old reviews and fan feedback of the trailer from our archives at theonering.net, and the feedback was kind of like, yeah, this first trailer doesn't feel right. And and a lot of the reactions were saying, please let Peter Jackson edit or direct the next trailer, because this trailer makes no sense. It's basically, the first teaser trailer was fan service, had no story points, no character names. It was just kind of like, you know, it was for the fans.
You mean the first teaser trailer that used that infamous music from Requiem for a Dream?
No, that was a Two Towers trailer.
That was a Two Towers trailer. Okay, let's not be confused. All right, let me never confuse that again. You're right, that was Two Towers trailer.
The first Fellowship trailer used some really great epic music that we could never source. In fact, I found an old post from Zoanen asking in public if anybody in Hollywood could tell us what the music was, and I don't think we ever identified it. I found Michael Zoanen on online today, and hopefully we can talk to him more about it. See if he ever did find what that first Lord of the Rings trailer music was, because it was so epic.
Well, the first teaser of Fellowship of the Ring included an animatic of the troll, the cave troll head, being operated by one of the digital animators.
Oh, that was a teaser. I'm talking the
that
first
was the early teaser. Okay,
yeah.
Well, I just heard you say that the first trailer didn't make much sense, and I thought you were talking about that early teaser.
Oh no, the first trailer. So let's go back in time, rewind a little bit. So
yes, let's rewind a bit.
So let's set the stage. It was January 2001. It was the year that Lord of the Rings was going to come out. So at the end of January 2001, I believe it was around January 28th, the trailer actually started hitting theaters, and many people started reporting that the first Lord of the Rings trailer for the big screen was in front of several movies. But there was no rhyme or reason. It wasn't on every movie. It wasn't in every region. And so we were getting reports from various little towns in Florida and North Dakota that had the Lord of the Rings trailer, but nothing in Hollywood or LA or New York had the trailer. So it seems like they were like slowly rolling out this Lord of the Rings trailer all the way through the end of March, when everybody had the trailer by the end of March.
Wow. Okay, I get that. Well, I really enjoyed. I know other people may have said their first reaction to the early Fellowship trailer, the teaser, was just nothing but excitement. The teaser, the early teaser, was nothing but crazy excitement because we were actually guaranteed that somebody was even bothering to do the project. The first official Fellowship trailer, I thought that was just a glory box of wonderful, wonderful things. And it was like, well, we knew there was not going to be any Tom Bombadil. At that point, we were struggling with the mystery of whether Peter Jackson was going to include all this weird little ephemera and, characters that have always been excluded from adaptations of The Lord of the Rings. We were really wondering where's Tom Bombadil going to show up? But at that point in time, it was every single drop of visuals that we could get was a treat, a total treat for us.
That's right.
And it really was.
Hey, Greg Tuxford says one of the trailers used James Horner's score from Braveheart. I wonder if that was it. I wonder if because I remember the music that you're thinking of, Lux Eterna, I think, from Requiem for a Dream was used in the Two Towers teaser. But a Braveheart music would make a lot of sense for this. Hey, John Constantine is in the chat room. He says, "Hi, friends. Do you remember me? This month I realized my dream. A photo with Billy Boyd 2 weeks ago in Milan. I celebrated the 16th with him." That's amazing. Look at this. 16 years later, and we're still just as excited to meet up with the actors as if the movie is currently in theaters right now. That's amazing. Congratulations, John, for checking off that little bucket list.
Thank you. Very nice, John. Yeah, okay. This is so great that people are on point. I totally dig that. We got a message from Pipsky. Hello, Pipsky. It's always lovely to have Kay on the show with us. Mm-hmm. She said she saw the trailer in a movie theater and nearly spilled my popcorn and soda all over everywhere. That's funny. I remember you tweeting, Justin, today that there were movie theaters warning people you will not get a refund if you are only coming to see this for the Lord of the Rings trailer.
Yeah. In fact, let me bring up on the screen here. Sorry to cover you up, Cliff. These are some of the movies.
I can't see what I look like on the frame. I'm not seeing what I look like.
You look wonderful, darling.
Yeah, always.
So the very first movie that we have confirmed attachment of the Fellowship of the Ring trailer was a movie called 13 Days. Do you remember that movie, Cliff? 13 Days.
I remember almost nothing about it, except that I remember vaguely that it was interesting that it had a numeral as a title.
Wait, is that the movie about JFK? Or was that later? I don't know.
Oh, do you know what? Is that the one about the Cuban Missile Crisis? Let me look it up.
Yeah, look up 13 Days. Other movies that were showing the Lord of the Rings trailer was AI from Steven Spielberg. Famously, it was AI was Stanley Kubrick's last film that Steven Spielberg took over to much controversy. And even still, AI has a weird reputation. Some people really hate it, and some people really love it.
13 Days was that big Kevin Costner movie with the remarkable Bruce Greenwood. We enjoy Bruce Greenwood so much in the J.J. Abrams rebooted Star Trek universe.
That's right.
But there he was playing Kennedy himself during the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. That was one of the movies people were going in to see. Yeah, that's funny.
Other movies, let me just hit those movies. It's AI, Lost Souls, Legally Blonde, Training Day with Denzel Washington, Tomb Raider with Angelina Jolie, Jurassic Park 3, and of course, Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor was the big one.
Oh, gosh.
A lot of people went to go see Pearl Harbor just to see the Lord of the Rings trailer. And in fact, it is true. I dug up some old archive news reports from the OneRing.net posted by Zoanon saying that many theaters were posting signs saying you cannot get a refund if you're only here for the Lord of the Rings trailer.
That's right. That is so right. Let's take a look at what you've been... our Twitter feed has been so active celebrating the birthday of Fellowship of the Ring. I wanted to have a few choice words with you about The Last Jedi, but we'll get to that eventually, because
Yes.
we have to have the Andy Circus conversation. Oscars for Andy. Everybody start using the hashtag Oscars for Andy.
That's right.
But looking at this, looking at the people reacting, this is this is the excitement of the 16th, sweet 16th birthday of the Fellowship of the Ring, and oh wow, you even reproduced that Ian McKellen Gandalf sketch that he did.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about this because everyone's talking about The Last Jedi right now and how fandom seems to be totally split on the new Star Wars movie, and there's a lot of hate. I mean, if you go to Rotten Tomatoes, it's sitting at like 50% negative on Star Wars: The Last Jedi, which has an over.
You mean on the audience ratings?
On the audience ratings, and if you go to
the world's critics have it like 92 or 94% fresh.
Just the fans.
But it is bizarre. It is bizarre that the difference between the critics and the audience score is a really weird polarization. And yeah, why is the fan audience for The Last Jedi responding in this way? Like, I mean, I thought that they would have been delighted that all of a sudden the franchise is not going to continue to parrot itself over and over and repeat the same stuff we've seen. I thought they would like to have a clean slate, which is, what we've got now in the Star Wars universe.
Well,
something of a clean slate.
I love The Last Jedi, and we could do a whole separate show about it. But
yeah, we can. We'll get to that. But hey, was the question that's relevant to Fellowship of the Ring on its 16th birthday, was the fandom equally polarized when Fellowship came out? No, it was not. Everybody, even the hardest, hardcore, long in the tooth, older fans who were really grumpy about Peter Jackson even doing this, they all had to say, wow, that was better than we thought it would be. There was not a lot of polarization among fans at the time.
There were some hardcore evangelical fans that took great issues with the Fellowship of the Ring and Peter Jackson's films, and it started with every time I hear about people complaining about Star Wars.
There's always a small compartment of that fan base that is very vocal,
small and loud, and everyone that I hear a lot on these negative takes on Star Wars: The Last Jedi, how the main character is a Mary Sue, and they just made the main character a female just for political correctness. Well, we heard a lot of this. A lot of Star Wars fans are saying this is
talking about Rose. No,
Rey.
I didn't see Rey.
Yeah, Rey.
Rey.
Rey is a Mary Sue. That's what people are saying.
I never thought of that.
Well,
believe me, I can smell bad Mary Sue a mile away. I can smell it a mile away when it happens. If anybody was guilty of being accused of a little bit of Mary Sue, that would be the appearance of Tauriel, maybe in the Hobbit films, maybe, but not Rey. Not Rey. Well, I never thought of that.
Anyway, there's a lot of reaction from very conservative fans saying that it's the character and the acting choices and showing so many female pilots and The Last Jedi is just going overboard with political correctness. We heard a lot of these same arguments back in Fellowship days, because a lot of people were saying, how dare you cast a gay actor for Gandalf? Tolkien, and the arguments were, Tolkien was a hardcore devout Catholic. He would not and did not approve of the gay lifestyle. He would not allegedly approve of a gay actor performing his most important character, and everyone was terrified of a gay Gandalf, and everyone said the same thing that we're hearing now about Star Wars, which is, this is political correctness run amok. How dare you put your liberal agenda into the Lord of the Rings? It's out of control. And Cliff, you were working with Ian McKellen's website at the time. Why do you have any insight of why he was pushed to publish a letter responding to those fans?
That is, I think if you look at Ian's history as an advocate, a very vocal champion for LGBTQ issues, you would find that Ian is very easily, I think, not compelled to add his voice to the debate, but he is easily drawn to an opportunity such as that. And when he sees an opportunity such as that to speak up about the issues, he will. I think that is in Ian McKellen's better nature, because that's how he operates as an advocate for the community on those issues. But the reason why, it had nothing to do with New Line. I'm sure that New Line Cinema at the time would have preferred that Ian did not do that. But he did. And I think that he felt compelled to say, I know a thing or two about Tolkien. I know a thing or two about scholarship. When it comes to Shakespeare scholarship, he was very quick to remind people that, that the women themselves back in the days of Elizabethan theater, the women were not allowed to take women's roles. So the men, or the ones that were small-framed men, those players in the company would have to dress in the female roles and do those representations for all those Shakespeare plays. So it's a subject that Ian was very intimate with. And I think he really wanted to address the fallacy, the essential fallacy in anyone's mind that they cannot separate the art from the artist. Anybody who's unable to separate these things is losing the most valuable part of what the performing arts can contribute to the world and to society. And I can imagine. And one day we'll just have to have Ian on the air, have him come on our show. He can explain everything from his point of view. But I'm certain that he would say that, he was not going to sit that one out. He just was not going to sit that debate out. And he was going to put a nail in it, a final wooden stake in that conversation about whether Tolkien would have approved of him playing the role of Gandalf. It's like, there was no policy agenda by Peter Jackson trying to cast, diversity of actors and players to fill the roles. He really wanted the best players for those parts.
And let's just be clear, like, this was not a majority of fandom. This was a very small but very vocal group of fans that were just trumpeting everywhere, their displeasure for a gay actor in their religious-based text, which they considered a very religious text. Again, they were seeing their own, and so a very small vocal group, and I feel like that's what's going on with Star Wars right now. There's a small but very vocal group that doesn't like the direction that Star Wars has taken. But let me
add another facet to this. There's a small and very vocal group of hardcore white supremacists who embrace Tolkien, and they think, and in their misguided way, that all of J.R.R. Tolkien's characters and messages are in support of the Aryan nation and white supremacy. And there's always going to be a misguided set of people. Even the Germans, as we've talked about on previous shows, the Germans during the time of World War II mistakenly thought that the dragon and characters in The Hobbit were a refraction of Tolkien stating support for German national interests through The Hobbit, just through The Hobbit and its characters being symbols of Germany versus other European concerns. Mistaken. Everybody's made these mistakes before. And look, it's happening with fans of The Last Jedi. It's happening, with, back when Fellowship of the Ring came out, because there was that small hate-filled group of people who were like, you can't have any, homosexual actors be involved in a Catholic project. Like Professor Tolkien certainly would not approve, blah, blah, blah. All of those wild misinterpretations are, they're easily exposed. My view is you give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves. When they express these silly views, there's a consensus of agreement among regular thinking, rational thinking, mature fan base who recognize the fallacy and the silliness of those arguments a mile away. I have to give our fan base a lot of credit for being a lot more discerning and a lot smarter than most other fan bases. I just have to say that. It's kind of true.
And back
I
when
hate to be uppity. I'm sorry, but
Hey, and it wasn't just the gay Gandalf thing. When Fellowship came out, there were some fan reviews that were negative. Most were positive, just like we're seeing with Star Wars, but some were negative. In fact, this one, which we've just posted a quick link, like just because it was one of the very, very, very few negative Fellowship of the Ring, but it's from the Child Care Action Project, a very fundamentalist Christian group. It's still online. We've linked to it on Twitter. But they say in their review, we note that this PG-13 movie had no foul language and no sexual issues of any kind, which is extremely typical of PG-13. So they were giving it a thumbs up. But the wanton violence and crime and offense to God scores were both 0, indicating an extremely graphic movie in violence and extremely concentrated in unholy and evil issues. And they go on.
Know what? Do you know that kind of idiocy, and I have no other word for it, but idiocy, shows nothing but blatant ignorance of Professor Tolkien's devout Christianity, and they totally are. It's disgusting how people can use and abuse their views on a certain piece of art just for their own slated views. It's just nuts. It's nuts.
Yeah.
If anybody knew what most of us know about Professor Tolkien having the Lord of the Rings filled to the brim with his devotion to his belief in God. Everything that Professor Tolkien did, every word that he wrote, every poem he wrote, and all the languages he invented as a sub-creator was part of his artistic devotion to expressing his Christian faith.
That's right.
And he thought that the best way to celebrate the creator, God, in his Christian views, he thought the best way that the creator of our primary world could be celebrated was by taking a tinkering hand and applying your skills to creating a secondary world. And he thought that would be one of the best ways to celebrate God's gift of creation, was by subcreating something in the world of Middle-earth. And if there's, I challenge any evangelical Christian from any stripe, anywhere, to debate me on the point of Professor Tolkien being unholy and focused on, quote, ungodly things.
Well,
I will take you down a peg or two.
Well, the reaction,
throwing the gauntlet out now.
The reaction to
it's absurd to even bring that up.
The reaction to this this review from a Christian perspective for children, elicited such a big reaction that they actually added an addendum, which is 3 times as long as the original ones.
Gosh!
But just real quick, the things that they didn't like about the movie. There's no sex and there's no homosexuality, so they give it a plus there. But then they see there's smoking, repeatedly smoking. There's drinking, repeatedly drinking alcohol. There's and under their category offense.
Well, I remember Jesus and the disciples drinking at the Last Supper. They had quite a bit of wine. And excuse me.
In their offense to God category, they say thousands of demonic beings of various sort, some extremely graphic. Also, many uses and portrayals of wizardry and sorcery. Third, many threats by unholy things. Fourth, multiple battles with sorcery using sorcery.
That's hilarious.
Fifth, many attacks by evil beings. Sixth, portrayal that being stabbed by an evil being's sword will make the victim evil.
Even J.K. Rowling faced those criticisms from conservative evangelical groups when her Harry Potter books came out, and there were all these boycotts, crazy boycotts, trying to get parents groups to stop buying the books and not allowing them anywhere near their kids because of wizardry and the occult. Oh dear. Oh, wring your hands with terrifying anxiety. We can't have fantastical representations of anything, can we? Much less bringing someone back from the dead, Lazarus, much less walking on water in the Sea of Galilee, much less making bread and manna fall from heaven. Yeah, we can't talk about any of that. Better wring your hands. It's terrifying.
Well,
Can't do it.
It's kind of a foreshadowing of what's going on with Star Wars: The Last Jedi right now. There are so many hot negative takes about Star Wars right now, criticizing every little piece of it. But we didn't let that just sit on its own. In fact, when we posted a link to that review, many fans emailed us back saying, I just read that review and here's my response. And boy, oh boy, did so many people have different responses to this. I'll just...
was this today?
No, this was back in December 30th, 2001. So this is...
in the year 2001. Oh, right when Fellowship first came out.
Yeah, this is Fellowship reviews. And so Christian writes...
It's a sweet 16 birthday for Fellowship. It really is. But I'm really glad we're getting our teeth into this level of conversation.
That's right.
Let me know what the fan response was. Tell me.
Christian says, and I'll just put a couple sentences here. I hope you post this letter referring to a different take of Fellowship posted yesterday. I am Christian. In fact, my name is Christian, and I hate and I hate other Christians who go for the throat on things like Lord of the Rings more than non-Christians hate it. It gives people the wrong impression on Christianity. I love the movie.
It does.
I love the movie. I saw it 3 times, and I didn't see anything at all in the movie that contradicted my Christianity.
Well, that was a very nice response. A bit more measured than mine.
Yeah, and then...
more measured than my response, yes.
Jared says, here's a copy of the email I sent to that website. He says, it saddens me to see the work of Tolkien, a dedicated Christian who was instrumental in converting the greatest Christian apologist of our age, C.S. Lewis, from atheism to Christianity.
That's definitely worth mentioning too, yes.
He says, it saddens me to see the work of Tolkien slandered in a very un-Christian-like column. I am heartened that most unbelievers first come into contact with the wit and wisdom of Chuck Colson, Charles Swindoll, Billy Graham before they come across your website. So the reaction, let's see, who else? JT writes, as an ardent C.S. Lewis fan who knows his head from his toe, this idiotic review offends me on so many levels.
That's hilarious.
So the question is, Cliff, you know, there was a dialogue going on in 2001 where people were publishing, Christian families were publishing such negative reviews, and then the fans had a platform through our message boards and through the onering.net. And, you know, we published this, and it just started a dialogue, and everybody was able to, like, come together. And, you know, as I just showed, on that original article from that that Christian website, they actually issued an addendum and responded to many of the critics. So,
indeed.
But the most the important thing I want to get at here is that there was a dialogue created around the reviews of Fellowship of the Ring. Do you see that happening now with The Last Jedi? Is there a dialogue happening, or is it a bunch of people retweeting stuff they like and not having the conversation, and just kind of everybody's pointing at each other saying, you're stupid, you're wrong, you don't understand this, and the other side saying, you're stupid, you're wrong, you don't understand it. I feel like there's no back and forth right now. It's just people yelling at each other and yelling as loud as they can, saying, I don't like this movie for many reasons. And I feel like we've forgotten how to have a dialogue about liking movies or not liking movies. And
do you think that's changed? Do you think that's essentially changed in the way fandom actually talks to itself? I mean, with
Yes.
this with these multiple platforms now and all the shared electronic media and all these different social platforms, you'd think that it would grease the wheels a little bit and make it a lot easier for fans to air out their concerns. In fact, it didn't take any time at all for mainstream media like The Hollywood Reporter or Vanity Fair to actually start and do lead stories about the internal conflict of Star Wars fans bitching at each other about The Last Jedi. So, I mean, uh, uh, I mean, do you think that just because we've had more and more conversation means it hasn't gotten any better?
I think it's a different mode of conversation, and I don't know if it's a conversation requiring back and forth, versus me just yelling at you and you yelling back, and I'm not listening and I'm not responding to you. And I want to bring up one of our classic editors, Mike Urban, who we just had on a panel at LA Comic Con just this last October.
Yeah.
Still a vibrant part of our community. And I just want to say that he didn't like the. Can you put the headphones on? I think we're getting a little bit of feedback.
Yes, I can.
Sorry,
No.
but I feel like Mike Urban is one of those classic literature fans, Tolkien fundamentalists, self-described.
He is.
Um,
He is.
so do you think? But we had this conversation when this movie came out, and he stated everything that's wrong and different about Fellowship than it is from the book, and everybody like embraced it and had a conversation about it, and we listened to the fans and we listened to Peter and
Yeah.
Fran and Philippa saying why they changed it. I don't know if that's happening anymore, where there's a conversation.
Indeed. Well, I have heard very little from you personally explaining what you disliked about The Last Jedi. You're one of the most interesting opinions that I really wanted to have about this film, Justin. And you know, I can. You and I, we are professionals at sitting on camera and disagreeing with each other. There's a lot of people who cannot professionally disagree with each other and actually get through the conversation. But you and I can. We do it all the time. We've done it for 6 years, actually, being able to disagree professionally on camera. Okay?
But so do you see that happening
But no, no, no,
with
no.
other fans?
I see people abusing their anonymity on the web all the time. When people want to post polarized points of view about politics, especially what we've seen in the political discourse over the past year, couple years especially, and how things have gotten much more coarse, much more pugilistic in conversation. I don't think that is isolated just to fandom. It is not isolated just to film commentary among that community. I think it's systemically bigger. Beyond any a doubt, I think that people have become more coarse and more polarized, especially because of the political climate and using shared electronic media. I think it's kind of seeped into our geek culture. Unfortunately, I think that some of the political abrasion that has been bothering us for so long is now starting to trickle down into our conversations in geek media as well. Maybe that's what we're witnessing.
Well, let's
I don't know.
let's bring in another person, part of the website at the time, and say hello in the chat room to many people who just joined, including Kyle of Gondor. Man, we've got a lot of people on our little
That's great.
little chat.
I wish that I could see those chat windows. I'm so sorry that I can't see them. But Justin, you tell me what you're observing. Tell me what do your elf eyes see?
A lot of people. Well, let's try to bring in Chris Parada, one of the co-founders of the website. Did that go through?
Oh yeah, hell yeah. Let's have Chris come in and join us.
And I think we're trying. See. Oh, maybe this is the right one.
Which one? Oh, hey.
Yeah, that works.
Get those Skype
There it
controls
is.
working. Hey there, Chris.
Howdy, howdy.
Hey, welcome
Hey,
welcome to the show, Chris Parada. Kalasuri, one of the co-founders of the website. You know, I've always wanted to know, where did the name, your online
where that
name,
comes from.
Kalasuri, come from?
Oh, gosh.
No one knows this? Come on, Cliff. I've said it so many times. I don't remember.
Yes. Yeah, I do, but I just love hearing Kalasuri tell the story.
No, it's just a misspelled. My older brother's my older brother's password was an X-Files episode, Kalasari. And when I stole his password,
You misspelled it.
I misspelled it as Kalasuri.
Funny.
And it was at the time, the early days of the internet, it was still a struggle to find a legitimately unique handle of any sort that didn't necessarily apply to anything. And so that was good. That's how it worked out. So it was a misspelled X-Files episode, essentially. And because I'm an X-Files freak, I really like the X-Files, which is so exciting. January 3rd. Anyway, so but yeah, that's all. And everyone thinks it's a girl's name, so that's great too.
So it's the perfect online name.
Yeah, it's all around perfect.
That's brilliant.
You know, we started off the show talking about the first Lord of the Rings trailer, not the official trailer, not that preview.
The one with the widescreen come out.
No, that was the teaser, like the behind the scenes. I'm talking like an actual trailer. Do you remember?
Oh, I remember. No, what I remember clearly is the teaser with the freaking. Again, people I don't think realize today, especially younger folks, don't remember what the internet was like way back in the day. And don't remember that high resolution wasn't there. Like this stuff was low resolution, and you're watching this 4:3 little venture of Peter Jackson talking behind the scenes, and then it like goes, like expands out, and your mind just freaking blew out of your head. Your eyeballs it was insane. I still I remember very few things in my life. I remember that.
You remember that?
That is one of the things I remember exactly where I was, watching it in the Penn State computer lab in the Patterson building up in my little office there. And yeah, that was mind-blowingly cool.
I was looking.
There was also the early days of Flash, and we could hack their Flash on the official site and take out their little movies and post them. Mm-hmm. And there was so many little things you could do back in the day. There weren't many sites that were that high up, and obviously the world has changed so significantly, especially online. No sites like that are in the top 1,000 anymore. But yeah, I mean, it was a crazy time. The number of people visiting the site, because that's when actually people visited websites versus Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So it was when the golden age. We're gonna be like, you know what, Cliff? In Chester, we're gonna be talking about this like in 30 years. Like, remember back when there was a dial tone.
They're already making those jokes now, Chris. But
I know. We're old.
It did blow us all away that we were in the top 1,000 websites in the whole world. Yeah. In the year 1999, the year 2000 especially, ahead of the release of Fellowship in 2001, we shocked ourselves, and we also raised a few eyebrows in the industry. In the Hollywood industry, they didn't know exactly what to make of us as a fan entity. And, the best example can be made of, remember the stink of somebody issuing a cease and desist letter to one of our founders of the OneRing.net, Erica? Remember that? Remember how we handled that? Because all eyes of the media around the world were on us and trying to figure out how the studio, New Line Cinema, was dealing with us. It was, as Gandalf would say, when Frodo wakes up in Rivendell, Gandalf says, well, that was touch and go, perhaps the most dangerous part of all. That is exactly what Gandalf says in the book, not in the movie. But anyways, what do you think, Chris? Perspective? Are we getting more perspective the further we get away from it?
I don't know. I think it was such a a renaissance, really. When you think about it, you got lucky. We got lucky to be in the world at that time. It was truly. Remember, we even destroyed the official site. Like the official site didn't even have numbers close to our own, and I mean, it was just it pissed them off to no end. I mean, they couldn't stand it. Like it was just,
and that website is still online right now, lordoftherings.net, and you can't watch any videos because they're all encoded in real video.
Are you serious? Like seriously, they still have the original lordoftherings.net. My God.
People in the chat room are just talking about those classic Burger King goblets. Remember those?
Oh yeah, I have them.
Let me go get my Burger King goblets. I have them right. Hold on.
Someone bought them. Lisa Crouch bought them for me, I think.
they didn't they have LEDs on the bottom and they glowed.
Yeah, but that was later, wasn't it? That was like the third movie or something.
It had been the third movie.
I don't remember. There's so many milestones. The other thing I really remember clearly is going to the Cannes Film Festival. That was awesome to be able to go to the Cannes Film Festival as a guest of New Line, to attend the Lord of the Rings party, to see the early footage.
This was the very first footage ever shown of Fellowship of the Ring.
That's pretty cool, Cliff.
They're in the box, Cliff?
Yeah, of course they're the original. Guess what? I'm going to take one of them out.
No, don't do that.
Don't
do it.
No, I've already taken them.
Okay, unless you already did. Okay,
I've done this before. I used to drink with these and serve drinks out of them. I want to see if the LED light still works.
Chris, you saw the very first footage of Fellowship of the Ring before anyone else did. What footage was that? Was it a scene?
It wasn't just Fellowship. No. It wasn't just Fellowship. It was Oh yeah, look at that goblet. That's cool.
There's Arwen, and let's see what's happening here. What's happening? No, dead batteries. Well, how many years? 16 years since these batteries have been used.
God, stop saying that. It makes just freaking old, man.
Now, here's the funny part. Here's the funny thing. The goblet itself is made of.
Oh God! I guess I'll have to go to the Cannes Film Festival and go. I will sacrifice myself to go and argue with the cast of Lord of the Rings at a castle and Cannes. Yeah, okay. I guess I could do that if I need to. And we met up with some really great guys from. What was their website, Cliff? What was Maurice's and Leo's website? Do you remember?
Maurice and Leo. Were they from Chud?
It was the Dutch. It was the Dutch version of. It was. We used to have sister websites in other languages, and there's the Dutch version of it.
Remember web circles?
Well, that's basically what it was.
Webring. That's what it was. Webring.
We had these communities. Another concept that's long dead. That hey, we'll share all our information with you. You do it in Dutch and we'll do it in English. Anyway, so Leo and Maurice were there as well. But what we saw was, and I sat right next to Harry Knowles during this, by the way, and the guy from Dark Horizons, Garth, and
Garth from Dark Horizons. Yes, that's right.
And who was the other guy? There was another, ringbearer.net. Remember that one?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I remember our friends from ringbearer.net. I do remember them, yeah.
So, and we watched, I don't remember how long it was, but I remember my mind was blown because it was snippets of all the movies and all three films with, main characters, and then the feature being the Moria sequence with the Balrog. Not the actual Balrog, but the whole sequence leading up to the Balrog, including Balin's tomb, and that whole crazy sequence. And then, seeing this was what, 7 months before the movie was out or something, and my mind was blown. And there's still, you can still Google it. I think my Cannes report from my how old was I then? 26. My 26-year-old self trying to pretend I was a reporter and write fluffy and like I was like
that's great.
I went to Middle Earth in whatever, and I read it now. I'm like, did he even write this? Like I it's really funny how when something like that is so significant in your life and you look back on it, and like I vaguely remember like writing it. I more remember the visuals of freaking out coming out of there. And back then you didn't really have we didn't have freaking iPhones. We didn't have freaking like instant access to everything. It was you had to work to email people and say, "Oh, this is really crazy," and figure out a good connection in the middle of the Cannes Film Festival. And then that night, getting on a bus and going to the party up on the mountain, on the hill in this castle, being bussed up there and hanging out and seeing Orlando Bloom with like 5 girls on his arms and running around, and seeing Billy Boyd walk up to Billy Boyd at the bar and no one's talking to him and be like, "Hey man, how's it going? You want to smoke?" Sure. I love it. The interviews were even more hilarious because nobody knew any of these actors. And I remember the one interview with Viggo. He was high as a kite, high as a freaking kite. I have the original tapes. I recorded it all on.
Really? Oh my gosh, those are golden.
They're in a box, and this guy, he was so high. He was sitting there just smoking, just like
smoking weed right in front of you.
In front of us.
That's amazing.
And you had Christopher Lee, and then Christopher Lee, like he was the most amazing person I've ever met. Like, and I didn't really meet him. All I did was sit in a room with it was like 6 of us, or reporters, to talk to him in a round table with him, John Rhys Davies, and Ian McKellen. Okay,
wow.
So that was the panel, and you had Christopher Lee like holding court. I mean, that guy was so freaking amazing. He could talk. He could give me a recipe.
What a crazy goof!
The New York Times itself, Armando was the elf, the Spanish elf, I guess.
That is hilarious, man.
As I was going through some of our archives from around that time, I found we had news posts. This was newsworthy posts about little banners announcing the trailer.
Yep. Oh yeah. Are you kidding me? Of course it was news. Everything was news, man.
Everything was news. But one of the interesting things was like trying to find when the trailer was launched or when the trailer was released in January. We were getting reports from all over the country that different theaters would have the trailer, but many didn't. And it was like this slow rollout of a Lord of the Rings trailer. There were reports from Pensacola, Florida, and Fargo, North Dakota. But in New York and Cincinnati and L.A., there was no trailer on any movie. It seemed like they weren't rolling out the Lord of the Rings trailer in any coordinated fashion. Do you remember anything like that where it was just not coordinated? It was just like, let's put it out there slowly. Drip.
Yeah. It's in brave new world, man. I just sent you guys a link in the Skype to the Cannes report, by the way.
Oh, excellent.
The archive that's on the page.
Hold on. Be right back.
And it's so funny. There's a picture of the party favor that we got.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look how witty I was. I did a French image du jour. Freaking tool. Coming back, they quiz you. This is before 9/11, so the security was still pretty intense. And you coming back into the States, going through whatever they give the screening process to get on the plane. And I remember I had that favor, right, which is a metal Sting replica that is basically a knife.
And you bringing a weapon on a plane, huh?
He's like, did you receive any gifts while you were here or something? I'm like, yes, I did. And he's like, were any of them like weapons of any sort? I'm like, does a mini Sting replica count as a weapon? I did. It was in my bag, so it was on my carry-on, so that was okay. But I remember being the naive kid, traveling internationally, just trying to be as honest as humanly possible. If he could ask me anything, and I would have told him my deepest secrets,
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Whatever. Oh, yes. Yeah. Crazy. LOTR.NL. That's what it was.
I also found a bunch of spy reports from fans about lost scenes that we have not seen anywhere. One of them says, after meeting Strider, there is there's a scene of Pippin and Sam stuck in a swamp. And there's many, many posts going through our archives of scenes described.
And these could all be that could be simply because remember, it's actually very similar to.
Hope that I hope that I'm not the only person talking about it. I'm telling you, there's a lot of other fans who are like we said earlier, very vocal and very interested in seeing all the missing shots of all the other things that we know they did. The library at Rivendell that they built, and you've heard Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh talk about those things on the director's commentary track on Fellowship of the Ring. So when you watch that Blu-ray, you'll realize, they do admit to having tons and tons of alternate takes, other alternate shots, other things they did but never used. So one of these days, I'm sure we would love to see all those threads woven back together and presented in a nice way, different than what they presented to us about, what was it, 8 or 10 months ago?
Yeah.
When they were trying to foist that wooden shelf of a box set on us.
I was thinking this the other day with all the Star Wars stuff. In the world of fandoms, right? Star Wars has a unique place because basically it can never die. There's nothing that can be done to it. It's always, that'll play out over the next 10 years as we have a movie every year. But, can it really ever die? Whereas I think we see clearly in our community that without some type of significant modern media focus, either movies or TV, the fandom wanes significantly. And it becomes more back to the books, which is where it all generated and that's great and all. But as far as in general pop culture, Lord of the Rings, you can see it in this. I do this a lot for work. Looking at search terms and pop culture search terms and seeing where different things rank as it relates to these different fandoms, and you can see the waxing and waning of particular licenses or topics. And Lord of the Rings is definitely on it's coming up again because of the TV shows. But it's interesting. I wonder if, we come into these little bubbles, these little cyclical Lord of the Rings movies, Hobbit movies, Lord of the Rings TV, extended edition, original release, Lord of the Rings, whatever movies from, it's interesting to me and then you have things like Star Wars, which is even keel, right? Well, not even keel because you have spikes with film releases. It's interesting to me that when people have those eternal debates about, what content is better, what's the best fantasy, there's all kinds of those kind of discussions. It's really hard to argue against, and maybe I'm going off topic, that Star Wars rules it all, because Lord of the Rings dips when there's not some focus. Game of Thrones is going to be gone. People are going to forget about that. I think people are already forgetting about it. Knowing there's an end, it's going to be done, and we're never going to hear from it again unless there's another TV series or a specific movie.
Five. Evidently, HBO was planning 5 different anthology series in that universe. Evidently.
There you go. So But but it's interesting. It's interesting to me that Star Wars can sort of outlive them, live everything.
Well, that's why I wanted to talk about that's why I brought up earlier the the fact that Star Wars trailer got 1 million downloads and the Lord of the Rings trailer got 1.7 million downloads. And this is at the peak.
What were the timing on them though? When was the Phantom Menace one?
Phantom Menace was 99, and the Lord of the Rings was 2000. So we're talking a year later.
It's probably more even because you think of the exponential growth of the internet at that. I mean, constantly, especially when it comes to technology and be able to download a QuickTime movie at the time. With the internet connections of the day.
But even with
pricey, but still was well attended and a success. And I think that's the one where I dressed up like Arwen. And then trying to keep that going through the next couple of years to watch it wane over time. Because remember, we had Elf. It was in Orlando, I think, which was the Eastern something Fellowship, which was another convention that we tried to launch. And those did not survive without the accompanying films to support it. And Star Wars does not have that issue necessarily, right? Star Wars entities can always maintain. You have a Star Wars convention, you're always going to have an insane number of people there. If we put a Lord of the Rings convention together tomorrow, right, and said we're going to have all these celebrities, all these people come by, do these fun workshops and have all this stuff, we would not get the passion and the attendance that you would see from something similarly done by a Star Wars. And that's sort of like where I'm saying is like where does that audience go? Star Wars seems to always be there. Where does the Lord of the Rings audience go?
Well, it's interesting. This year was the first year that 3 Tolkien-based conventions were canceled. It was HobbitCon in Germany, RingCon. I think that's also in Europe.
Old school. These are all old school significant events.
And and of course the Tolkien track at DragonCon. 3 huge, many years in existence Tolkien-based conventions. Which I've only been to DragonCon. We've had many fans send in photos from RingCon and HobbitCon. The pictures of there are packed rooms. So that was the big debate with DragonCon. It's like we're packing the rooms. That like every single panel with the Tolkien track, almost all of them were at capacity, and it definitely wasn't that this year. I went to many panels this year that it was half empty rooms. So without Tolkien attached. So I think that the fans are there. It's just there isn't a single organizational entity that people look to. And the other thing I want to say is, like, with Star Wars fans, Celebration was every 3 years, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It wasn't every year. It was every 3 years. They gave the fans a chance to breathe. There was no official Star Wars convention or Star Wars event every year. It was every 3 years, whether there was a movie or not.
Well, fans can breathe for us because we're going to have our big party in New Zealand in 2021, right? So, they have some time to prepare for that.
That's 3 years away. So, where do fans go to? I mean, do you think it was?
Let me
go ahead.
I love this question. I'm very interested in this question that Chris has brought up because there's something about a comparison to Star Wars which is too easy, but perhaps it's not the best comparison because Star Wars as a piece of American culture has deeper roots. It's come out in the late 70s, and I'm not talking about the Lord of the Rings not having deeper roots. The Lord of the Rings as a piece of cinema does not have as deep of roots in film history and that kind of film culture which supports it. So Lord of the Rings is much more recent of a child on those branches of that family tree, considering that. But even though we know the books have been there since the mid-50s, 1954, but that's not really, I'm talking about the presence of film and the impact of film. So Star Wars has way more ahead
I think
of what Lord of the Rings does.
To
But
piggyback on that, Cliff, I think Star Wars was again one of those things we all see in life. Just random event that significantly changed culture completely to the extent of that for cinema, period. Until that time, that was Star Wars was a new concept, right? And then we got into the 80s and all the amazing stuff that came after it. So really, it was the change. It was like, color in film, so comparing it in this way is probably not fair.
True. I dig you on that point. I appreciate that. But, when I look at the real history of Ringer fans and having produced and written a documentary feature about the subject, I've examined their world. I'm in that world myself, and believe me, I've taken myself a little bit outside of it to examine academically what's going on with the Ringer culture. And I think that aside from the way that other fandoms behave, the community of Tolkien fans has always been rather comfortable being like a hobbit, being quiet and introspective and, keeping to themselves. We've been that way since the 60s. And in the 70s, when there was the earliest waveforms of a fan culture that wanted to reach out to each other, well, there was a lovely lady named Lori Battle. She was our old friend and connect at the Tolkien Enterprises company in Berkeley, California, which is, Saul Zentz, a company that issues licenses for using Lord of the Rings and Hobbit for other productions. And Lori Battle was kind enough to run a little newsletter that came out quarterly, 4 times a year. She would create a fun little newsletter with some fan art submissions and some recipes for making biscuits and muffins and some fun things like, some abstract pieces of discussion about what's beyond the maps of Middle Earth. And there was also a little flyer so you could buy posters and keychains of the Ralph Bakshi animated Lord of the Rings. All this stuff was in the 70s, but without fans like Lori Battle, who was a centerpiece person in the world of Tolkien as far as running the licensing and the company, without other fans running a little fanzine out of their garage before the internet happened, that is the essence of what Tolkien fans really were. They were publishing simple, double-sided flyers out of their garage. They were sending small mailing lists to other fans that they knew were around the world, and there was little outcroppings of the Tolkien Society, which was really the only group doing consistent academic and, fan gathering things where they'd organize once a year and have a symposium and talk with some academics about their ideas and real literary, hard, bookish center of fandom. And that was way before any movies for Lord of the Rings came out. We were always a bookish, intellectual, and rather quiet fandom. We've always been that way.
Your first point and your last point reiterated, I think, is the exact answer to the question. Because as you were saying it, Catherine Nicholson Love in the chat room posts, I think perhaps long-term Lord of the Rings fans are more of the Hobbit variety, more inclined to stay at home or discuss the books in pubs, go on individual quests and tours through New Zealand. So she's basically saying what you just said. We're Lord of the Rings fans are just a more homebody type of group that want small gatherings and not huge conventions with 10,000 people.
That's been the engine we've had since the 60s and 70s. And all of a sudden, in the 80s, late 80s and early 90s, the advent of the internet really changed everything about how, and Chris, you can speak to this better than anyone, it really became a whole new world. Don't you dare close your eyes.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay. Do you think the Oscar...
I messed up my Skype. I just messed up my Skype, by the way.
Oh, well,
sorry, Justin.
Bring it back. I'm just saying that we were no longer confined to printing fanzines out of our garage. We were a fandom that were really in touch with each other. And here we are.
Do you think the Oscar parties and the Bilbo Baggins birthday parties and all these events that we helped organize, even the line party portal, kind of reinforces what you just said, which is we're more about the small groups? Chris, how many tickets? How many attendees did we have at those parties? No, no more than a few hundred, right?
Yes.
So we're talking about major events, and I think that was what was magic about the line party and the line party systems that the One Ring had, where people could create small events in their community and small groups could assemble. And it wasn't about a giant thing in Cincinnati or Cleveland or Pensacola or wherever Star Wars does their celebration every year in a different city. I think to your point, Cliff, we're a small, close-knit, homebody group, and I think the fans are in those small groups. They number in greater numbers than Star Wars, I will say, and I think in all metrics, in community, in media consumption, and in dollars spent, Lord of the Rings outpaces Star Wars fans. But I think there just isn't that flashpoint of a giant convention.
I wouldn't say dollars spent, for sure.
Really?
No. Definitely not dollars spent. But
that's only because we haven't had near as much merchandising, have we, as Star Wars has.
Well, my whole entity is based on the insane success of the merchandising that was done in the early 2000s. But I agree with you guys. I totally agree that it's a different animal. It's a different fan. It's a different type of person that participates in Tolkien fandom versus Star Wars fandom. But I think we're in a different culture too. Like back in the day, back in the early 2000s, we did have opportunities with the line parties for people to get together. And we did get together. People went to a bookstore and had 6 people, right? Like at a bookstore reading chapter by chapter, meeting up at a Barnes & Noble, when Barnes & Noble were relevant, but not going out of business. And so what we're finding is as a society, right, we keep finding more and more people don't want to be around other people. And I think what we find is it's more challenging to get people like us from Tolkien fandom to come out, to be comfortable when you have so many other, like right here, guys, we're talking on Skype, we're hanging out, why do I need to leave my house? So, and why do I have to pay? So, there's, the world is so different now. It's unfortunate because I think it's sad that we don't get together and have friend groups. And I think in LA, by the way, I think you guys do, like, obviously, I think in cities, major cities, I think you do. Where I live, not so much. There might be a group, but probably like one person goes. But we were talking about this the other day, Justin, in trying to reinvigorate the line party concept, and ultimately approaching official entities to set up watch parties at theaters for the release of the videos, the TV. Mm-hmm. So, say when Amazon's going to first do their first episode, hey, Amazon, let's team up with AMC or whatever and have it be nationwide, and we'll coordinate local. We'll coordinate folks to come in and we'll do events, and we'll team up with manufacturers and other people making cool stuff and give free things out and have fun and, do dinner beforehand and make little enamel pins and, and get people out. I think that I would enjoy watching the series with an audience.
I'm so down for this. I'm so energized by this concept. Chris, that's excellent.
Right? And it's taking back sort of the humanity of participating in fandom. Because right now, I mean, I'm so addicted to, like, I don't even watch live TV. I don't watch live TV at all. If a show doesn't interest me in the first 10 minutes, I'm on to the next thing. I literally have so much to consume with Amazon Prime and Hulu and Netflix and Apple and whatever. Our minds are so fragmented and easily, we know something else is better out there. We don't have to put up with anything for more than 5 minutes. Whereas if you commit to going to see the Amazon show at a movie theater with a group of Tolkien fans, you at least have that community to hang out with and feel like you're part of something a little more different.
Let me ask you this, Chris and Cliff. Going back to the early 2000s when these movies came out, Star Wars fans are incredibly competitive. I remember when the Phantom Menace was coming out, everyone thought it was going to beat Titanic. It was all about competitive numbers and being the biggest. The interesting thing that we're in now is that now that the new Lord of the Rings will not be a feature film, there's no box office to compare it to with the new Star Wars. It will not be on network television, so there will be no Nielsen numbers to compare to. Amazon does not report viewing numbers.
Not in the traditional sense. Yes, so, there'll be a different metric now. And I get the question you're going towards.
I don't think there will be a metric at all to compare to. And let me did you see that in Tolkien fandom back when the movies were coming out? Was fandom kind of obsessed with like setting records, or was it just like we're just having fun, guys?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, people wanted Fellowship to open up gigantic. People wanted Return of the King. When by the time Return of the King came around, I mean, look at the Oscars, right? For Return of the King, we wanted to be the biggest film of all time ever,
yes,
right?
We did,
and it was a full-on competition, and it made that night insane. I would like to throw in a little, going back into the history here. Again, the younger self, I was a little bit more of an a-hole, and I remember the competition that we had just amongst sites. I think you can even see that now on Facebook groups. You see the same evolution of the competition between like fandoms. People wanting to be the number one Facebook group. Back then, it was people want to be the number one site. I fully bought and sold into that, and worked my butt off to make sure that we were the top one, which in hindsight was, not really how I like to represent myself from back then. But I look at some of my emails from like the early 2000s. I'm like, you wrote that?
Oh gosh. Oh gosh.
So the competition. Yeah. I think the competition exists, Justin, in the fandoms. I do like to think that we're not. Someone's grabbing your shoulders, Cliff.
They can't see you. There's Ben. Hey guys, it's Ben Ricci. It's Rocker Ben.
So, but I do think in general, demographic wise, you're talking about Tolkien fandom is a much higher educated, higher income, much more likely to take opportunities, I think, to have intellectual discussions. And so, I think it's right for us to come back into the fray here with these line party concepts and get things rolling again, if you ask me.
I'm bringing up...
It's just a matter of technical how to do it.
Yeah, I'm bringing up some of our old posts that I was going through the archives today, and I found a Fellowship of the Ring box office update from July 2002. We were still getting box office numbers 8 months after release.
Brandon from Box Office Mojo was our best friend.
That's right. Brandon Gray is credited here, and then we have I found another old post saying that a theater manager in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the theater received notice from New Line Cinema to send back the reels and stop showing Fellowship of the Ring November 1st, 2002. Theaters were
showing the Fellowship of the Ring. We want the next movie to be coming out next. Right.
The drop dead ship return date was November 1st, 2002. We're talking Fellowship was in theaters for an entire year. There's only one other movie that has been celebrated for a year in theaters, and that was Star Wars.
Amazing.
Wow, it was good. It was so good. It was so good. I also, you guys already talk about the gatekeeping fandom stuff from The Last Jedi?
we started to get into some of the negative reactions and
because that existed with the Lord of the Rings trilogy as well.
Yeah, we talked about how a lot of like the anger from the Last Jedi and the negative reviews we're seeing of how Rey is a Mary Sue, and to get your liberal agenda out of Star Wars. Cliff was working for Ian McKellen at the same time when we were getting.
I'm one of the most conservative people you know, by the way, and I love that movie. So just
But what
anyway.
we got it at the One Ring when the gay Gandalf.
Thank you for that.
Everyone was up in arms. Conservatives hated gay Gandalf.
Oh, I'm not social conservative. That's lunacy. I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? I am.
I have. There's. That's hilarious. That is funny. I'm gonna let that one go. Go. That's funny.
That was you misunderstood what I said. But anyway, yeah.
So my concern right now is if that's the temperature of fandom right now, what we're seeing with Last Jedi, how do we manage fan expectations so that this toxicity and this inability to talk between each other and have a dialogue doesn't.
This existed. Well, the Hobbit movies for sure. I think they're a better example of the gatekeeping, the fandom gatekeeping that exists by the purists or whatever you want to call them. I think the reaction that you're seeing to The Last Jedi, I don't think it's disappointment. I think the Hobbit movies was a disappointment versus what you have in The Last Jedi case is a full-on affront. Like people felt like this destroyed the canon. It's different. I think it's a different situation. But we had that. I mean, we had this gatekeeping concept. But I think I came in when you guys were talking about Ostadon, and some of the other staffers that just universally always hated all of the movies. It's all crap. It's not exactly what Tolkien wanted, and so therefore, it's not legitimate.
And the point I was making earlier was that the community was okay with having a discussion about it, and there were many posts back and forth, even news posts. This person has a review, Austin has a review, and then a rebuttal. And what I'm not seeing with The Last Jedi is a dialogue. I'm seeing people yell at each other and not react to each other. They're just like, "You're wrong. I can't believe you're ruining things." And the others that's what
I don't think those things you're witnessing and those behaviors are characteristic of the fandom. I think there's a characteristic of a culture in general that is now using social media in a more pugilistic way. Yeah, it's the time. It's the time. Sad to say.
The time.
Yes.
It's no one talks. Well, it's also the algorithm, right? We talked this before where everyone exists in their own little vacuum thanks to Facebook.
Yep. Yeah.
You want to. It's funny. I deliberately go out of my way to try to discuss things with other people, with different opinions, so that I can at least stay in contact with them. Because if you only like certain things, if you only interact with certain people because they agree with you, that's all you get fed back. Mm-hmm. Just constant feedback, and then you live in a little echo chamber, and you're like, "Whoa, How did this happen? How was this madness happen?" And
it's leading to large-scale cognitive dissonance that we are unfortunately dealing with.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We got a great comment from in the chat room from Leia Peterson, which goes back to what Cliff was saying. She says, "As someone who is a part of both Star Wars and Tolkien fandoms, I have noticed that my love for Tolkien is something I like to keep to myself and a select group of individuals, whereas my Star Wars fandom is more public and something I like to share with everyone."
I can understand that.
That pretty much sums up the big difference, and I think, Cliff, you had it right as soon as we started talking about it. We're Tolkien fans are small group people.
Well, no. It's not that we're a small group of people. I have a funny feeling that Ringer fans are a little bit more inward.
Yeah, I agree.
I got you, Chris. I got
A
you.
little more inward.
Well,
Get out of here.
this has been
This
a
guy.
wonderful conversation today.
It's been a wonderful conversation, but when it starts to look like Rowan and Martin's laugh-in is going on in my own house, and there's people popping out of doors making one-liners, then maybe it's time we stop the show. Maybe.
I would love to do a Tolkien version of Hollywood Squares.
That would be brilliant. Oh, a Tolkien version of Hollywood Squares would be... You know what? Now that we've already said that, excellent. Thumbs up. I guarantee you that the writers working with Seth Green at Robot Chicken are going to go ahead and do that for us.
Nice.
Now that we've put it out there, they're going to do it.
Well, this is our last show before Christmas and our second to last show for the year. So from this part of Wandering.net, this side of the screen.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just have to ask. What is going on behind you? What is the happy penguins? What is that?
What happy penguins?
Happy penguins. It's Christmas penguins.
It's my Christmas penguins. I got all my Christmas stuff is out. Look.
I love it.
That's funny.
Oh, nice. Did you guys watch the live show of that? I recorded it.
Oh, Christmas Story Live.
I've got an actual lamp, and so
that's fun.
Yeah, I've got all my Christmas stuff out. Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to Jesus Christ Superstar Live.
I was until I found out who they cast as Jesus.
Oh, don't tell me.
Who?
Don't.
It's news today.
Oh, is it?
Who did they cast?
Someone I don't like.
Oh, okay.
And I don't like his voice, and that's why I don't like him.
Oh gosh.
It better be.
And I know it's a weird. I think it's a really weird choice because I forget what the original cast member's guy's name is, but Neely or something Neely. Amy, what's the guy who played Jesus? What's the guy who played Jesus in Jesus Christ Superstar? Neely? Anyway. It's John Legend.
Oh, really?
That is a interesting...
That's an interesting choice. John
Legend.
Legend.
Not the right range. As a huge fan of that original production and movie.
You know what? Chris, would you agree that that's a really challenging score? It is. I know there's a lot of good rock scores, but that's one of the more challenging rock scores.
That's why you had to get
isn't it?
Don't even get me started.
This man is a
JC Superstar.
He's very accomplished. He's the cat from the cast of Hair. Ben has performed in the cast of Hair. He knows a rock musical.
Yes, I have about 5 different versions of JC Superstar on vinyl. I would suggest.
Can John Lennon
from 1976, produced by Camilo Sesto.
Wow, the Spanish version.
Yeah,
wow,
it's in Spanish entirely. And
ask him about John Legend.
How about John Legend?
I'm sorry, but I can't hear what anyone's saying because I don't have headphones.
He says to ask you about John Legend. Do you know John Legend was cast as Jesus, as the lead role in JCS, is what we call it. Yeah. Did you know John Legend was cast?
For what production?
For the are they going to do it as
NBC Live.
NBC Live. They're doing the live musical on NBC.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Thank you. I'll check that out.
Is that thumbs up or thumbs down?
What is it?
Boyd version that almost happened.
Oh my God! I didn't know about the doomed Brandon Boyd version.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Is it a thumbs up from him?
The doomed Spider-Man musical on Broadway, where the lead guy playing Spider-Man fell and broke his hip opening night.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Same producer started to do a version of JC Superstar on Broadway, starring Brandon Boyd as a Judas, and I think Johnny Rotten was going to play King Herod or
Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper is playing Herod in this production.
You are the Christ.
Guess what?
Wow. Really?
He decided that the ticket sales weren't doing as good as he wanted them to, so a few months before it was supposed to go on, he just pulled the plug on the whole thing. And all of these people lost their jobs.
So ask him if it's a thumbs up.
It's not selling enough.
Ask him if John Legend's a thumbs up, Cliff.
Okay.
Terrible.
All right. Final question: is John Legend a thumbs up or thumbs down for casting? Yeah, as Jesus. Thumbs up or thumbs down? We're closing the show now, so thumbs up or thumbs down?
I'm hopeful about that because I know that he can sing. I do not know much about his music because I don't listen to shitty music.
Oh!
I do know that he has a competent voice.
Oh boy.
Oh my gosh.
A
A
black man
competent
played
voice.
Jesus would be closer to historically accurate, even though Jesus was most likely a curly-haired Jew with a tan.
Yeah, I wasn't going into the race part of it. We're just
So
talking
really,
about the voice.
Yeah, the
We're
voice.
just talking about the voice. Okay, we're done.
Yeah. We'll see. It depends
Alice
on how-
Cooper is Herod, by the way.
That
His
is
music
exciting.
That is exciting. Alice Cooper is
That's very
Herod.
funny.
Yeah.
You know what? Oh, yeah. But the fact that Alice Cooper is Herod is brilliant.
No. Johnny Rotten.
Johnny
No.
Rotten?
Of the Sex
Tell him
No,
he's
new casting for
Oh,
the
the
new
new cast.
NBC is
Alice
Alice
Cooper?
Cooper. Yes.
Is who again?
Herod.
That's fucking great.
He's like, that's effing great. Okay, we got it. All right.
I'm off
Are we on the Phil Hendry show?
Phil
Just
Henry.
my hijacked.
Yeah.
Are we
I
on
love
the
it.
Phil Hendry show?
But one more thing. One more thing.
But
I'm gonna think about this.
one more thing. Oh, look who's there joining the show.
Oh, hey, we have more party crashers.
We have more party crashers. Wow.
Hi.
She's cuter. Cuter than you, Ben. She's so cute.
She is adorable. Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Look at those beautiful faces.
Who are they?
Hi. Those are Chris's daughters.
Hi.
I'm not here. Oh, there we go. Hey, guys. Hey,
We're
Chris.
finishing the show, though. We're finishing the show.
Yes. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. We can finish the show.
We're almost finished.
All right. Let everyone say Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Can you say Merry Christmas, girls?
Merry Christmas, everybody. And we will do another show before the end of the year, won't
Yeah.
we?
Yes, we will.
All right,
Okay.
guys. Thanks for having me
All the
on the
beat
show this
on
week.
what
All
happened
right.
at-
Thanks for joining us on Torn Tuesday. We're here every Tuesday. You guys have a Merry Christmas if we don't see you because you're traveling. Happy New Year. And we'll see you at the Tolkien Toast celebrating Tolkien the first week of January. Till next time.
Goodbye, everybody. Bye. Oh, my God. That's hilarious. That's hilarious.